Sometimes exile is peace. Sometimes being cast out is the only way to finally breathe. I'm Elara, and 3 years ago, I was banished from the Shadowpine Pack, the only home I'd ever known. 3 years ago, the Alpha King himself signed my exile decree with his own hand, sealed it with his own blood, and watched as the guards dragged me beyond the territory line. Before I walk you through my life's journey, please tell me your name, where you're watching from, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel. 3 years ago, I thought my life was over. I was wrong. Because, you see, fate has a twisted sense of humor. And destiny doesn't care about politics, about fear, about the lies that powerful men tell themselves to sleep at night. Destiny only cares about truth. And the truth is this: the man who cast me out would one day kneel before me, begging me to save his life. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me take you back. Back to the beginning. Back to when I was still naive enough to believe that being gifted was a blessing instead of a curse. I was 17 when my powers first manifested. It happened during the Blood Moon Festival. You know, that sacred night when the pack gathers to honor our ancestors, when the young wolves come of age, when the bonds between mates are recognized and celebrated under the crimson glow of the moon herself. I was helping in the healing tent as I always did. My mother had been the pack's head healer before she died, and I'd inherited her gentle touch, her knowledge of herbs and roots and ancient remedies passed down through generations of healers in our bloodline. But that night something changed. A young warrior had been injured during the ceremonial hunts, a deep gash across his chest, bleeding profusely, his breath coming in shallow gasps. The other healers were panicking. They'd tried everything. Yarrow to stop the bleeding. Comfort to speed the healing. Even the old magic, the whispered prayers to the moon goddess. Nothing worked. He was dying right there in front of us, and I couldn't just stand there and watch. I placed my hands on his chest, and that's when it happened. My palms began to glow. Not like candlelight. Not like the soft shimmer of moonlight on water. No, this was different. This was power, raw, ancient, terrifying power that surged through my veins like liquid starlight. My hands blazed with silver fire, and where I touched him, his wounds began to close. Not slowly, not gradually. Instantly, the flesh knit itself back together as if it had never been torn. The blood flow stopped. His breathing steadied, deepened, strengthened. And within moments, he sat up, completely healed, staring at me with wide, frightened eyes. The entire tent went silent. And I knew, right then, that my life would never be the same. You see, in our world, there are healers, and then there are healers. The ordinary kind, they use herbs and knowledge, and the basic magic that flows through all wolf kind. They're respected, valued, trusted. But what I had just done, that wasn't ordinary. That was old magic, ancient magic, the kind that hasn't been seen in our packs for centuries, the kind that scares people because they don't understand it, the kind that makes politicians nervous. Within a week, whispers started spreading through the pack. Some called me blessed. Some called me gifted. But others called me cursed. Dangerous. Unpredictable. They said my power was too strong, that it didn't follow the natural laws, that someone who could heal with just a touch might also be able to harm with just a touch. They were afraid of me. And in wolf politics, fear is more dangerous than any weapon. The council met in secret. I didn't know about it at first. Why would I? I was just a young Omega healer, barely 18, still learning to control the power that had awakened inside me. I spent my days in the healing dens, helping pack members with their ailments, trying to understand this gift that both thrilled and terrified me. But the council, they were plotting. Elder Maddox was the worst of them. He'd always been suspicious of my family, of my mother's line of healers. He believed that too much power in the hands of Omegas disrupted the natural order, that it threatened the hierarchy that kept the pack strong. And now, here I was, an Omega with more power than most of the council members combined. That they couldn't allow. I found out later what he told them in those secret meetings. He said I was a threat to the pack's stability, that my power was unnatural, possibly dark magic. That I might be influenced by forces beyond our understanding, rogue spirits, ancient curses, maybe even enemies of the pack using me as a vessel. None of it was true, of course. But truth doesn't matter when fear takes hold. Truth doesn't matter when powerful men feel their control slipping away. They presented their case to the Alpha King. And he listened. I remember the day they came for me. It was raining, a cold, merciless rain that seemed to mirror the ice forming around my heart. The guards appeared at my door just after dawn, their faces grim, their eyes refusing to meet mine. Elara Vin, the captain said, his voice formal, distant. You are summoned before the Alpha King and the Council. Immediately. I knew. Somehow, I knew what was coming. The Great Hall was filled with council members, all wearing those same grim expressions. And there, at the head of the room, sitting on the throne carved from ancient oak, him. Alpha King Theron Ashwood. God, he was magnificent. Even now, even knowing what he did to me, I can't deny that. He was everything an alpha should be. Powerful, commanding, with eyes like molten amber and a presence that made every wolf in the room instinctively want to bow their head in submission. I'd admired him from afar for years. What young Omega hadn't. He was strong, fair, respected by his warriors and beloved by his pack. He'd led us through 2 territorial wars and emerged victorious both times. He was a king in every sense of the word. And I was about to discover that even kings can be manipulated by fear. Elara Vin. His voice echoed through the hall, and I felt it resonate in my chest like a physical thing. The Alpha's command. The King's judgment. You stand accused of possessing dangerous and uncontrolled magic that poses a threat to the safety and stability of the Shadowpine Pack. How do you answer? I wanted to scream. I wanted to rage against the injustice of it all. But I was raised to respect the hierarchy, to trust in the wisdom of our leaders. So I simply said, my power is meant to heal, my king. I would never harm our pack. Elder Maddox stepped forward then, his voice dripping with false concern. But can you control it, child? Can you honestly say that you understand the forces flowing through you? What if, in a moment of emotion, that power lashes out? What if it harms instead of heals? I'm learning to control it, I said, hating how small my voice sounded. I just need time, guidance. Time we cannot afford, another council member interrupted. Not with such unpredictable magic in our midst. I looked at the Alpha King, pleading silently for him to see reason, to see me, not as a threat, but as one of his own. As someone who only wanted to serve the pack, to use this gift for good. For just a moment, I thought I saw something flicker in his eyes. Doubt maybe. Or regret. But then Elder Maddox leaned in and whispered something in his ear, and whatever compassion might have been, there vanished, replaced by cold resolve. The council has made its recommendation, the Alpha King said, his voice now devoid of emotion. And I must consider the safety of the pack above all else.
No. Please no.
Elara Vin, by the power vested in me as Alpha King of the Shadowpine Pack, I hereby banish you from our territory. You are to gather your belongings and leave before sunset. You are forbidden from returning, from contacting any pack members, from claiming any connection to Shadowpine. You are, from this moment forward, a lone wolf. The words hit me like physical blows. Exile. They were actually exiling me. I stared at him, unable to believe what I was hearing. My king, please. The decree is final, he said, and now he wouldn't even look at me. Guards, escort her out. As they led me from the hall, as I walked past council members who wouldn't meet my eyes and pack members who whispered and pointed, I felt something inside me break. Not my spirit, no, that would come later. What broke was my faith, my trust, my belief that the pack would protect its own, that power used for good would be celebrated rather than feared. They were casting me out because I could heal.
Think about that.
Really think about it. They were punishing me for having the ability to save lives. And the man who signed that decree? The Alpha King who chose politics over justice, fear over truth? He had no idea that in 3 years' time, his own life would depend on the very power he was condemning today. The rain hadn't stopped. I stood at the territory line with nothing but a small pack of belongings, watching as the guards made sure I crossed over. Made sure I left. One of them, Marcus, who I'd healed just a month ago when he'd broken his leg during training, looked at me with shame in his eyes. "I'm sorry, Elara," he whispered. "This isn't right." But he didn't stop it. None of them did. That's the thing about injustice. It thrives not because of the cruel ones who perpetrate it, but because of the good ones who stand by and do nothing. I crossed the line. And just like that, I was alone. Truly, completely alone. Do you know what it feels like to have your pack bond severed? It's like having a part of your soul ripped away. Suddenly, that constant hum of connection, that awareness of your brothers and sisters, that comfort of knowing you're part of something larger than yourself, it's just gone. The silence in my head was deafening. I walked for 3 days straight, driven by some instinct I didn't understand. North, always north, toward the mountains that bordered our territory. Toward the wild lands where few wolves ventured, where the old magic still lingered in the stones and streams. I should have been terrified. A lone wolf, especially a young Omega, was vulnerable. Prey for rogues, for predators, for the dangers that lurked in the wilderness. But you know what? I wasn't afraid. I was numb. It wasn't until I found the cave, a hidden hollow in the mountainside, surrounded by night-blooming jasmine and overlooking a crystal-clear pool, that I finally stopped walking. This would be my home now. This cave, these mountains, this solitude. I built a fire that first night and sat watching the flames, letting myself feel everything I'd been holding back. The betrayal, the heartbreak, the crushing loneliness. I cried until I had no tears left. And then I started to rebuild. You might think that exile would break me. And maybe for a while it did. But here's what I learned in those mountains, in that cave that became my sanctuary. Sometimes you have to be broken before you can become whole. I started slowly. I gathered herbs from the mountain slopes, wolfsbane and moonwort, silver sage, and starflower. I created a garden in the clearing near the cave, planting the seeds and roots I'd managed to bring with me. I practiced my magic. Without the fear of the council's judgment, without the whispers and suspicious glares, I could finally explore the full extent of my power. I healed injured animals that wandered near my cave, a hawk with a broken wing, a deer wounded by hunters, even a young bear cub separated from its mother. My power grew stronger, more controlled, more precise. I learned that I could do more than just heal wounds. I could sense illness before it manifested. I could purify poison water. I could even ease pain with just a touch, bringing comfort to creatures suffering from ailments beyond my ability to cure. The mountains became my teacher. The moon became my guide. And slowly, painfully, I began to find peace. Word spread, somehow. I don't know how. Maybe the animals I healed told others, in whatever way creatures communicate. Maybe the old magic that still lingered in these mountains called to those who needed help. But they started coming. Lone wolves, mostly. Outcasts like me. Rogues who'd left their packs for one reason or another. They'd heard whispers of a healer in the mountains, a young woman with magic in her hands and kindness in her heart. I helped them all. I didn't ask their stories. Didn't judge their pasts. If they came to me injured or sick, I healed them. That's what healers do, regardless of politics or pack loyalty or fear. That's who I am. 3 years passed like this. 3 years of solitude broken only by occasional visitors. 3 years of honing my craft, of learning to be self-sufficient, of making peace with my exile. I won't lie and say I didn't think about the pack. About my home. About him. The Alpha King haunted my dreams sometimes. I'd see his amber eyes, hear his voice pronouncing my banishment, feel the sting of his rejection all over again. But I also found myself wondering if he ever thought of me. If he ever regretted his decision. If he ever lay awake at night questioning whether he'd made the right choice. Probably not, I told myself. Kings don't waste time on regrets. I was wrong about that too. It was a night like any other when everything changed. The moon was full, hanging heavy and bright in the sky, and I was in my garden harvesting moonwort. It's most potent when picked under a full moon, you see. The night was peaceful, filled with the sound of crickets and the gentle rush of the mountain stream. Then I heard it. Hoofbeats. Someone was riding hard up the mountain path, moving with desperate speed. I froze, my healer's instincts immediately on alert. No one came to my cave at this hour unless something was very wrong. The rider burst into the clearing, and I recognized the Shadow Pine Pack uniform immediately. My heart lurched. "Healer," the young soldier called out, practically falling from his horse. "Healer, are you here?" I stepped forward, keeping my voice calm despite the panic rising in my chest. "I'm here. What's wrong?" He turned, and I saw the desperation in his eyes. He was young, maybe 19, and I vaguely recognized him from my time in the pack. "The Alpha King," he gasped. "He's dying." The world seemed to tilt beneath my feet. What? "He's been sick for weeks, getting worse every day. The pack healers have tried everything, every herb, every treatment, even the old magic rituals. Nothing works. He's fading, and they sent me to find you." I stared at him, unable to process what I was hearing. "They sent you? The same council that exiled me? The same pack that cast me out as a threat?" The soldier had the grace to look ashamed. I know it's not right. But please, he's dying. The Alpha King is dying, and you're the only one who might be able to save him." Oh, the irony. The bitter, cruel irony of it all. The man who banished me for my healing power now needed that very power to survive. Part of me, the part that still ached from his rejection, that still carried the scars of exile, wanted to refuse. Wanted to tell this young soldier to ride back and inform the council that the dangerous, unpredictable healer they feared so much had decided to let their precious king face the consequences of his own judgment. But I couldn't, because despite everything, despite the betrayal, despite the injustice, despite 3 years of exile, I was still a healer. And healers heal. That's what we do. Even when it costs us. Even when it hurts. Even when the patient is the last person in the world who deserves our help. "Let me gather my supplies," I heard myself say. The ride back to Shadowpine territory was surreal. 3 years. 3 years since I'd been dragged across that border and forbidden to return. 3 years since I'd seen the familiar forests, smelled the particular scent of pine and earth that marked pack lands. And now I was riding back, cloaked in darkness, summoned by the very people who'd cast me out. The young soldier, his name was Thomas, I learned, filled me in on the details as we rode. The Alpha King had fallen ill about 6 weeks ago. At first, it seemed like a simple fever, nothing to worry about. But it didn't break. Instead, it got worse. The king grew weaker, his strength fading day by day. He couldn't shift anymore. Could barely eat. Spent most of his time sleeping, and when he was awake, he was delirious with fever. "The healers say they've never seen anything like it," Thomas said quietly. "It's like his life force is just draining away, like something is consuming him from the inside." I frowned, my mind already working through possibilities. Did anything unusual happen before he got sick? Any injuries, any encounters with strange magic? Not that anyone knows of. He was on a routine patrol of the northern border, came back, and a few days later, this started. The northern border, where the old territories lay, where magic still lingered from the ancient times, before the packs were organized, before the councils and hierarchies and politics. I had my suspicions, but I'd need to see him to be sure. We reached the pack house just before dawn. The building loomed before me, exactly as I remembered it, grand and imposing, built from stone and timber, a symbol of the pack's strength and permanence. I used to love this place. Used to feel pride every time I walked through those doors. Now it just felt like a prison I was voluntarily entering. The guards at the entrance recognized me immediately. I saw the shock in their eyes, the confusion. One of them even reached for his weapon before Thomas quickly intervened. "She's here by the Alpha King's command," he said firmly. "Let us through." They did, though their stares followed me all the way inside. The pack house was eerily quiet. It was early, yes, but there was something more, a pall of grief and fear hanging over everything. The Alpha King wasn't just their leader, he was the heart of the pack. If he died, everything would fall into chaos. Thomas led me through familiar corridors to the Alpha's chambers. I'd never been in this part of the pack house before. Omegas didn't typically have access to the royal wing. 2 guards stood outside the heavy oak doors, and beyond them, I could hear murmured voices. The council, probably, hovering like vultures. Thomas knocked, and the door opened. Elder Maddox stood there, and when he saw me, his face twisted with barely concealed disdain. "So," he said coldly, "the exile returns." I met his gaze steadily. "You sent for me, Elder."
I came.
"Are you going to let me help him, or did you call me here just to gloat?" For a moment, I thought he might actually refuse to let me in. But then another voice came from within the room. A woman's voice, tight with worry. "Is she here? Let her in, for Moon's sake." The king's sister, Lady Vera. I remembered her as being kind, one of the few who'd spoken against my exile. Maddox stepped aside reluctantly, and I entered the Alpha King's chamber. Nothing could have prepared me for what I saw. The great Alpha King there in Ashwood, the strongest wolf in the pack, the warrior who'd led us through wars and emerged victorious, he looked like a ghost. He lay in his bed, skin pale as moonlight, dark circles under his eyes, breathing shallow and labored. His once powerful frame had withered, muscles wasted away, leaving him looking fragile, vulnerable, mortal. Lady Vera sat beside him, holding his hand, her face etched with fear and exhaustion. She looked up when I entered, and relief flooded her features. "Elara," she breathed. "Thank the moon. Thank you for coming." I moved to the bedside, my healer's instincts taking over, pushing aside everything else, the complicated history, the pain of exile, the complicated feelings swirling in my chest. Right now, he was just a patient who needed help. I placed my hand on his forehead, and immediately, I knew this was serious. His skin burned with fever, yes, but underneath that I could feel something else. Something dark and invasive, like roots of shadow wrapped around his life force, slowly draining it away. "How long has he been like this?" I asked. "He's been getting progressively worse," Lady Vera said. "But this weakness, this inability to even open his eyes, it's been 3 days now." 3 days. He might not have much longer. I closed my eyes and let my power flow outward, gentle and seeking, trying to understand what I was dealing with. The magic came easily now after 3 years of practice, of learning to trust it rather than fear it. And what I found made my blood run cold. "It's a curse," I said quietly. "Ancient magic. Someone or something has bound his life force and is slowly draining it away." Gasps from the council members around the room. "A curse?" Elder Maddox demanded. "That's impossible. Who would dare curse the Alpha King?" "I don't know who," I said, still focused on the dark magic wrapped around Theron's essence. "But I know what. This is old magic. The kind that requires sacrifice and ritual. Someone with knowledge of the ancient ways did this." "Can you break it?" Lady Vera asked, her voice trembling. Could I? This was beyond anything I'd attempted before. This wasn't just healing a wound or curing an illness. This was unraveling a complex magical working, one designed by someone with considerable power and knowledge. But as I stood there, feeling the curse's grip on the Alpha King, feeling his life force flickering like a candle in the wind, I knew I had to try. Because despite everything, despite the exile and the betrayal and the pain, I couldn't let him die. Not like this. "I can try," I said. "But I'll need time, space, and absolutely no interruptions. This kind of magic is delicate. If I'm disturbed at the wrong moment, I could make things worse." Elder Maddox looked like he wanted to argue, but Lady Vera cut him off. "Everyone out," she commanded, her voice carrying an authority I'd never heard from her before. "Give her room to work. The healer knows what she's doing." There were grumbles, of course. Protests about leaving me alone with the unconscious Alpha King, about the risk, about trusting someone who'd been exiled. But Lady Vera was adamant, and eventually they all filed out, leaving me alone with the dying king. I waited until the door closed, until I was certain we were truly alone. Then I let out a shaky breath and whispered, "Okay, Theron. Let's see if I can save the man who threw me away." I started by preparing the space. Using herbs from my pack, I created a protective circle around the bed, sage for purification, salt for protection, moonwort to enhance my connection to the lunar magic that powered my healing. I lit candles at the cardinal points, their flames steady and bright in the dim room. Then I pulled a small vial from my pack. Moon water. Water collected during the last full moon and charged with my intention to heal. I'd been carrying it with me for months, never knowing when I might need it. Apparently, fate had known. I placed my hands on Theron's chest, right over his heart, and closed my eyes. "I'm going to try to help you," I whispered, even though he couldn't hear me. "Even though you don't deserve it. Even though you broke my heart and my trust and my faith in everything I believed about our pack." My hands began to glow, that familiar silver light emanating from my palms. But that's what healers do, isn't it? We help, even when it costs us everything. I let my power flow into him, gentle at first, like a stream trickling over rocks. I could feel the curse immediately, dark, twisted, malevolent. It had wrapped itself around his core, around the very essence of what made him Alpha, what made him Theron. And it was squeezing, slowly, methodically, draining his life force drop by drop. I'd never seen anything like it. The complexity was stunning, layers upon layers of magical working, each one reinforcing the others, creating a web that tightened with every attempt to break free. Whoever had done this was a master of dark magic. But I had something they didn't account for. I had love. Oh, I know what you're thinking. Love for the man who exiled me? The man who chose politics over justice, fear over truth?
Yes.
Despite everything, despite the pain and the betrayal and the 3 years of exile, somewhere deep inside me, in a place I'd tried desperately to ignore, I still loved him. Not because he deserved it, not because he'd earned it, but because the heart doesn't always listen to reason. And love, true, pure, selfless love, is the most powerful magic there is. I poured everything into the healing. Every ounce of power I possessed, every technique I'd learned in my years in exile, every whispered prayer to the moon goddess. My hands burned with silver fire, so bright I could see it through my closed eyelids. The curse fought back. It was like wrestling with shadows, with smoke that slipped through my fingers every time I thought I had a grip on it. It twisted and writhed, sending tendrils of darkness up my arms, trying to infect me, to drain my power the way it had drained Theron's life force. I gritted my teeth and pushed harder. Hours passed. I lost track of time, lost awareness of everything except the battle raging between my healing magic and the curse trying to kill the Alpha King. Sweat poured down my face. My muscles trembled with exhaustion. But slowly, so slowly, I began to make progress. I found the core of the curse, the central knot of dark magic from which all the other strands emanated. It pulsed with malevolent energy, resisting my every attempt to unravel it. So I did something desperate. I opened myself completely. I dropped every defense, every wall, every protection I'd built around my heart after the exile. I let the full force of my power flow through me, channeling not just my magic, but my emotions, the pain, the betrayal, yes, but also the hope, the compassion, the stubborn belief that even broken things could be healed. The silver light exploded from my hands, and the curse shattered. I felt it break apart like glass under a hammer, felt the dark magic dissipate like smoke in a strong wind. The tendrils wrapped around Theron's life force loosened, withdrew, vanished.
He gasped.
His eyes flew open, those amber eyes I'd seen in my dreams for 3 years, and locked onto mine. "Elara," he whispered, his voice rough from disuse, but undeniably alive. You came?" I pulled my hands back, my whole body's shaking with exhaustion. The council sent for me. They said you were dying. I was, he said, trying to sit up, though he was clearly still weak. I saw her.
Death.
She was waiting for me in the shadows, ready to take me. But then I saw light. Silver light. And I saw you. I stood abruptly, needing distance, needing space to process what had just happened. The curse is broken. You'll recover fully within a few days. Make sure you eat, drink plenty of water, and rest. Your body needs time to replenish what was drained. Elara, wait. I did what you summoned me to do, I said, my voice coming out harder than I intended. I healed you. I broke the curse. My debt to the pack is paid. Now I'll return to my exile, and you can go back to forgetting I exist. I turned toward the door, but his voice stopped me. I never forgot you existed. I froze. Every day for 3 years, he continued, his voice growing stronger, more certain. Every single day, I thought about you, about what I did, about the choice I made. You made your choice, I said without turning around. You chose the council's fear over truth. You chose politics over justice. You chose. I chose wrong. Those 3 words hung in the air between us. Slowly, I turned to face him. He was sitting up now, looking at me with an intensity that made my heart race. I chose wrong, Elara. I knew it the moment you walked away. I knew it every day after. And I've regretted it every moment since. Then why? I demanded, all the pain and anger I'd been holding back for 3 years finally breaking free. Why did you do it? Why did you cast me out? I only wanted to help the pack, to use my gift to heal, to serve. Because I was a coward. His admission shocked me into silence. The council told me you were dangerous, he continued. That your power was too unpredictable, too strong. That you might be a threat to the pack's stability. And I believed them. Or I told myself I believed them. But the truth. He stood, though he swayed slightly, his body still weak from the ordeal. The truth is that I was afraid of you. Not because you might harm the pack, but because of what I felt every time I was near you. My heart was pounding so hard I could barely breathe. What did you feel? The mate bond, he whispered.
No.
No, that wasn't possible. You're lying, I said, but my voice shook. If we were mates, I would have felt it too. You were too young when I first sensed it. Barely 18. I was the Alpha King, and you were a young Omega just coming into your power. The bond was there, but it was dormant, waiting for the right time to fully manifest. He took a step closer. But I felt it. Moon helped me, I felt it. And it terrified me. Because acknowledging that bond would mean admitting that my mate, my destined queen, was the very person the council feared most. It would mean choosing between my duty to the pack and my heart. And I. You chose duty, I finished bitterly. I chose wrong, he corrected. I thought I was being strong, putting the pack first. I thought I was being a good leader. But all I did was betray the one person fate had chosen for me. All I did was condemn both of us to 3 years of loneliness and regret. Tears were streaming down my face now, and I didn't try to stop them. Do you have any idea what Exiled did to me? I asked. What it felt like to be cast out by the only family I'd ever known. To be told I was dangerous, unwanted, a threat. I know, he said, his own voice breaking. And I'm sorry. I'm so sorry, Elara. If I could go back, if I could undo what I did. But you can't, I said. You can't undo 3 years. You can't erase the pain. You can't just. I know I can't, but I can try to make it right, starting now. And then he did something that shocked me to my core. The Alpha King, the most powerful wolf in the pack, the man who commanded the respect and obedience of hundreds, dropped to his knees before me. Elara Vin, he said, his voice steady despite the tears in his eyes. I wronged you. I betrayed you. I cast you out because I was afraid of my own feelings, my own destiny. I let fear and politics rule me instead of truth and honor. He reached for my hand, and I was too shocked to pull away. But fate has given me a second chance. You came back. You saved my life when you had every reason to let me die. You showed me more grace and compassion than I ever showed you. His grip on my hand tightened. I don't deserve your forgiveness. I don't deserve your love. But I'm asking anyway. Because you're my mate, Elara. You always have been. And if you'll have me, if you can find it in your heart to give me a chance to prove I can be the man, the mate, the king you deserve, then I swear to you, I will spend the rest of my life making up for what I did. I stood there, trembling, torn between the pain of the past and the impossible hope of the future he was offering. And if I say no? I whispered. If I tell you it's too late, that you hurt me too badly, that I can't trust you ever again? Then I'll accept it, he said simply. I'll let you go back to your exile in peace. I'll make sure the council never bothers you again. You'll be free, truly free, to live your life however you choose. He looked up at me, and I saw complete sincerity in those amber eyes. But I'm hoping, praying, that you'll stay. Not because I command it, not because the pack needs you, but because despite everything, despite all the pain and betrayal and broken trust, fate still wants us together. The room fell silent, except for our breathing. And I realized something. He was right about the mate bond. Now that he'd said it, now that the possibility was out in the open, I could feel it, that pull, that connection, that inexplicable certainty that we were meant for each other. It had always been there, I realized. Even in exile, even when I tried to hate him, even when I told myself I'd moved on. The bond had been there all along, waiting. But the question remained, was I brave enough to accept it? Was I strong enough to risk my heart again with the man who'd broken it so thoroughly before? I honestly didn't know. I pulled my hand from his grasp and walked to the window. Dawn was breaking over the packlands, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold. Somewhere out there, beyond the territory line, was my cave. My sanctuary. My safe, solitary life where no one could hurt me because I never let anyone close enough.
It would be so easy to go back to that life.
When I was in exile, I said quietly, still looking out the window, I used to imagine this moment. You realizing you'd made a mistake. Coming to find me, begging for forgiveness. I heard him stand behind me, though he kept his distance. In those fantasies, I was always strong. Always certain. I'd tell you exactly where you could put your apology, and I'd walk away with my head held high, triumphant in my rejection. I turned to face him. But now that the moment is actually here, I find myself uncertain. Because it's not that simple, is it? Nothing ever is. No, he agreed softly. It's not simple at all. Part of me wants to punish you, I admitted. Wants to make you feel even a fraction of the pain I felt. Part of me wants to reject the bond just to watch you suffer the way I suffered. His jaw tightened, but he nodded. I would deserve it. Yes, you would. I crossed my arms, trying to hold myself together. But that's not who I am. I'm a healer. Causing pain, even to someone who hurt me, goes against everything I believe in. I took a shaky breath. And the truth is, I can feel it too now. The mate bond. It's like a thread connecting us, pulling me toward you even when my mind is screaming at me to run. Even when logic says I should protect myself, my heart wants to give you another chance. Hope flickered in his eyes. But wanting to give you a chance and actually doing it are two different things, I continued. You broke my trust, Theron. You cast me out. You chose fear over me. How do I know you won't do it again? How do I know that the next time the council pressures you, the next time politics demands a sacrifice, you won't throw me away again? You don't, he said honestly. I can't give you guarantees. I can't promise I'll never make another mistake or that leading the pack will never put us in difficult positions. He moved closer, close enough that I could feel the warmth radiating from him. But I can promise you this, I will never let fear rule me again. I will never let anyone, not the council, not politics, not even the good of the pack, come between us. Because I've learned something in these 3 years, Elara. A pack without heart, without justice, without the courage to protect its own, That's not a pack worth leading. His hand reached up to gently cup my face. And you are my heart, my mate, my queen. If I have to choose between you and everything else, I choose you. Every time, without hesitation. Tears were streaming down my face again, but this time, they weren't entirely tears of pain. I'm scared, I whispered. I'm scared of trusting you again. I'm scared of being hurt again. I know. I'm scared too. Scared that I've damaged us beyond repair. Scared that even if you stay, you'll never truly forgive me. Scared that I don't deserve the second chance you might be considering giving me. He leaned his forehead against mine, and I felt the mate bond pulse between us, stronger now, more insistent. But I'm more scared of losing you completely, of never getting the chance to prove that I can be better, that we can be better together. I closed my eyes, letting myself feel everything, the fear, yes, but also the hope, the pain of the past, but also the possibility of the future. And I made my choice. I'll stay, I whispered. His breath caught. But I continued, pulling back to look him in the eyes. This isn't forgiveness. Not yet. Forgiveness has to be earned, Theron. Through actions, not just words. Through choices, not just promises. I understand, he said quickly. I'll earn it. However long it takes, whatever I have to do. I need you to disband the council, I said firmly. He blinked. What? The council that exiled me. Elder Maddox and his cronies. I need them gone. Not punished, not executed. I'm not asking for revenge. But I won't be your mate, your queen, while the same people who called me cursed and dangerous still hold power over this pack. He was quiet for a moment, and I could see the political calculations running through his mind. The council had been part of pack governance for generations. Disbanding them would be a massive shift in power, one that would undoubtedly create waves. But then he nodded.
Done.
I'll announce it today. We'll form a new council, one chosen by merit and wisdom rather than political maneuvering. One that includes voices from all parts of the pack. Warriors, healers, omegas, everyone. And I want protection for other wolves like me, I continued, emboldened by his agreement. Those with unusual powers, with gifts that others might fear. I want it written into pack law that no one can be exiled simply for being different, for being powerful, for scaring the status quo. Agreed. What else? I thought for a moment. I want my cave. I'm not giving up my sanctuary in the mountains. I'll live here, with you, as your mate and queen. But I need to know I can retreat to the mountains when I need solitude, when I need to reconnect with the magic that sustained me through exile. The cave is yours. Always. I'll make sure no one disturbs you there unless you give permission. And finally, I took a deep breath. I want honesty. Complete, total honesty. No more secrets. No more hiding behind politics or duty. If we're going to make this work, if we're going to overcome everything that's happened, we have to be able to trust each other completely. You have my word, he said solemnly. Complete honesty. Even when it's difficult. Even when it's uncomfortable. You'll always know the truth. I studied his face, searching for any sign of deception, any hint that he was just telling me what I wanted to hear. But all I saw was sincerity. And love. Okay, I said softly. Then I'll stay. I'll be your mate, your queen, your partner. The smile that broke across his face was like the sun emerging from behind clouds. But Theron, I added, my voice taking on a warning tone. If you ever betray me again, if you ever choose politics over us, if you ever make me feel the way I felt when you exiled me, there won't be a third chance. The mate bond or not, I will walk away and never look back. You won't have to, he promised. I swear to you, Elara. I swear on my life, on my position as Alpha, on everything I hold sacred, I will never betray you again. And then he kissed me. It was soft at first, hesitant, as if he was afraid I might pull away. But when I kissed him back, when I let myself finally give in to the mate bond that had been pulling us together all along, it deepened. And for the first time in 3 years, I felt whole. The pack gathered in the great hall later that day. Word had spread quickly that the Alpha King had recovered, that the healer, the exiled Omega, had saved his life. The hall was packed with wolves from all ranks, all eager to see what would happen next. I stood beside Theron at the front of the room, acutely aware of all the eyes on me. Some looked at me with gratitude, others with suspicion, and some, like Elder Maddox, with barely concealed fury. Theron raised his hand, and the hall fell silent. 3 days ago, I was dying, he began, his voice carrying to every corner of the room. A curse had been placed on me, one that was slowly draining my life force. Your healers tried everything to save me. Nothing worked. He turned to look at me, and the warmth in his eyes made my heart skip. So I sent for Elara Vin, the woman this pack exiled 3 years ago. The woman you called dangerous, cursed, a threat to our stability. I summoned her back, not knowing if she would even answer the call after everything I did to her. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. She came, Theron continued, and she saved my life. She broke a curse that would have killed me, using the very power this council once feared. The power that caused her exile. He stepped forward, his voice growing stronger. I stand before you today because of Elara Vin. I breathe, I live, I lead because she chose to help me despite having every reason to let me die. She showed this pack more mercy and grace than we showed her. Elder Maddox stepped forward, his face red. My king, surely you're not suggesting. I'm not suggesting anything, Elder. I'm declaring it. The exile of Elara Vin was a mistake. A grievous, unjust mistake born from fear and political maneuvering rather than truth and wisdom. Gasps echoed through the hall. Furthermore, Theron continued, I am disbanding this council, effective immediately. Chaos erupted. Council members shouted protests. Pack members whispered frantically to each other. Elder Maddox looked apoplectic. You cannot do this. Maddox yelled over the noise. The council has governed this pack for generations. And in those generations, how many innocent wolves have been cast out because they were different? Theron demanded. How many gifted individuals have been exiled because their power scared those in authority? How many times has this council chosen fear over justice? The hall fell silent again. No more, Theron declared. We will form a new council, one chosen by the pack itself rather than inherited through political connections. One that represents all voices, warriors, healers, omegas, everyone. One that values wisdom and compassion over fear and control. He turned to me and held out his hand. And I am claiming Elara Vin as my mate and queen. If the hall had been chaotic before, it was pandemonium now. Some wolves cheered. Others looked shocked. The former council members looked like they might actually attack us. But Theron's voice rose above it all. She is my fated mate. The bond has spoken. And I choose her. I choose love. I choose healing. I choose the courage to be better than my predecessors. Anyone who has a problem with that can challenge me for the position of alpha. He looked around the room, his alpha dominance rolling off him in waves. Anyone. Silence. Even Elder Maddox, furious as he was, wasn't foolish enough to challenge the Alpha King directly. Especially not one who'd just recovered from death's door. Then it's settled, Theron said. Elara Vin is your queen. Treat her with the respect and honor she deserves, the respect and honor we should have shown her 3 years ago. He turned to me, pulling me close. Do you accept? He whispered, just for me. I looked out at the pack, my pack, apparently once again. I saw familiar faces, some friendly, some hostile. I saw the young wolves who'd heard stories of the powerful healer in the mountains. I saw Lady Vera, tears of joy streaming down her face. And I realized something. This wasn't just about Theron and me. This was about changing the pack itself. About creating a place where power wasn't feared but celebrated. Where being different wasn't a crime but a gift. This was about making sure no one else would ever be exiled for being exactly who they were meant to be. I accept, I said, loud enough for everyone to hear. I accept the position of queen. And I promise you this, under our leadership, this pack will value every member. The powerful and the weak. the conformists and the different, the traditional and the extraordinary. I met Elder Maddox's furious gaze directly. Fear will no longer dictate our choices. Love will. The first few weeks were challenging. Transitioning a pack from generations of one form of governance to something completely new doesn't happen smoothly. There were protests from the former council members. There were wolves who refused to accept me as queen, who whispered that I'd used dark magic to ensnare the Alpha King. But there were also supporters. Lady Vera became my closest ally, helping me navigate pack politics and teaching me the protocols I'd need to know as queen. Young wolves sought me out, wanting to learn healing from someone who'd mastered such powerful magic. And slowly, very slowly, even the skeptics began to come around, especially after I started using my gifts to help the pack. I established a new healing center, one that combined traditional medicine with magical healing. I trained other healers, teaching them techniques I developed during my exile. I even created a sanctuary for wolves with unusual powers, a safe space where they could explore their gifts without fear of judgment or exile. The pack began to thrive in ways it hadn't in years. And Theron kept his promises. He disbanded the old council and worked with the pack to elect new representatives. He rewrote pack laws to protect those with unusual abilities. He made sure I had complete autonomy in my healing work, never questioning my methods or trying to control my power. Most importantly, he was honest with me about everything. When political tensions arose, he discussed them with me openly. When he faced difficult decisions, he asked for my input. When he struggled with self-doubt about whether he was being a good enough mate, a strong enough alpha, he told me. And I began to heal too. Not the physical kind of healing I was so good at, but the emotional kind, the kind that happens when trust is slowly, carefully rebuilt. The kind that happens when someone proves, day after day, that they meant their apologies, that they're committed to change. We had difficult moments, of course. There were nights when nightmares dragged me back to the exile, when I woke up crying, convinced I was still in that cave, still alone. Theron would hold me during those nights, whispering reassurances, reminding me that I was safe, that I was home, that I was loved. There were times when pack business required Theron to make decisions I didn't agree with, and we'd argue, sometimes fiercely. But we always talked it through, always found compromise, always chose each other, even when it was hard. And slowly, so slowly, I almost didn't notice it happening. I fell in love with him. Not the infatuation I'd felt as a young Omega, admiring the powerful Alpha from afar, but real, deep, mature love. The kind built on respect and partnership and shared struggle. The kind that survives exile and betrayal and comes out stronger on the other side. 6 months after I became queen, the Blood Moon Festival came around again. The same festival where my powers had first manifested all those years ago. The same night that had set everything in motion, my exile, my isolation, and ultimately my return. The pack gathered in the sacred clearing, the same place where we'd held the festival for generations. But this year felt different. There was an energy in the air, a sense of anticipation and hope. Theron and I stood at the center of the gathering, and for the first time, I wasn't hidden in the healing tent. I was beside the Alpha King, his mate and queen, honored rather than feared. As the blood moon rose, painting everything in its crimson glow, Theron took my hand. "I have an announcement," he said to the assembled pack. Everyone fell silent, waiting. 1 year ago, I was dying, killed by a curse, brought low by forces I didn't understand. And this woman, my mate, your queen, saved my life. He turned to me, and I saw tears in his eyes. But that's not the only thing she saved. She saved this pack. She showed us that power doesn't have to be feared. That being different doesn't mean being dangerous. That love and compassion can be just as strong as dominance and control. He raised our joined hands. And tonight, under the blood moon that witnessed her first manifestation of power, I want to make our bond official. To complete the mating ceremony and join our lives, our souls, our destinies completely. My breath caught. We talked about this, of course. About making our bond official. But I hadn't expected it to happen tonight, under the same moon that had changed my life so many years ago. It felt right, like coming full circle. Elara Vin, Theron said formally, his voice carrying to every member of the pack. Do you accept me as your mate? Do you choose to bind your life to mine, your future to mine, your heart to mine? I looked out at the pack, at the faces watching us, some crying, some smiling, all bearing witness to this moment. Then I looked at Theron, at the man who'd broken my heart and spent the last 6 months carefully, patiently putting it back together. At the alpha who'd chosen love over fear, who'd rebuilt his pack on foundations of compassion and justice. At my mate. I do, I said clearly. I accept you, Theron Ashwood. I choose you. I bind my life to yours, my future to yours, my heart to yours. The bond snapped into place fully, completely, perfectly. It was like lightning and honey and moonlight all at once, rushing through my veins, connecting us in ways that went beyond words, beyond thought. I could feel his emotions as if they were my own, his love, his relief, his overwhelming joy. And I knew he could feel mine too. Under the blood moon, surrounded by our pack, we kissed. And this time, there was no hesitation, no uncertainty, no fear. Just love. Pure, powerful, destined love. I'm standing in my cave again, the sanctuary I refused to give up even after becoming queen. It's different now than it was during my exile. More lived in. I come here often, sometimes alone to meditate and reconnect with my magic, sometimes with Theron when we need to escape the demands of pack leadership. But today, I'm here for a different reason. I place my hand on my stomach, feeling the new life growing there.
Our child.
The heir to the Shadowpine pack, conceived under last month's full moon. I haven't told Theron yet. I wanted to be sure, wanted to savor this knowledge alone for a few days before sharing it. A child with healing magic in their blood. A child who will grow up in a pack that celebrates their gifts rather than fears them. A child who will never know exile, never know what it feels like to be cast out for being powerful. That's what we've built here. That's what we've created from the ashes of exile and betrayal. A pack where everyone belongs. Where power is celebrated. Where love triumphs over fear. I hear footsteps behind me and turn to see Theron entering the cave. He knows me well enough now to know when I need him, even without words. Hey, he says softly, pulling me into his arms. Everything okay? I smile up at him, my hand still resting on my stomach. Everything's perfect, I say. I have something to tell you. His eyes widen as he follows my gaze to my hand. Understanding dawns on his face. Really, he whispers, his voice full of wonder. Really? He drops to his knees, pressing his ear to my stomach, and I run my fingers through his hair. They called me cursed, I say quietly, echoing words I spoke so long ago. But the moon called me chosen. And now I'm calling myself blessed. Theron looks up at me, tears streaming down his face.
I love you, Elara.
My healer. My queen. My everything. I love you too, I whisper back. My alpha. My mate. My home. And as the sun sets over the mountains, painting the cave in shades of gold and amber, I realize something. Exile wasn't the end of my story. It was just the beginning. So tell me, if you were me, would you have gone back? Would you have answered the call of the man who cast you out? Would you have risked your heart again after it was so thoroughly broken? Would you have been brave enough to choose love over fear? I hope you would. Because here's what I learned through all of this, through the exile and the betrayal and the painful journey back to trust. Sometimes the people who hurt us aren't villains. They're just flawed, frightened humans or wolves who made mistakes. And sometimes, just sometimes, those people are capable of
change,
of growth, of becoming the partners we always needed them to be. But that change only happens when we have the courage to demand it,
when we set boundaries and stick to them,
when we refuse to accept less than we deserve. I didn't just forgive Theron and move on. I made him earn my trust back. I demanded changes, real, systemic changes that would prevent other wolves from suffering what I suffered. I insisted on honesty, on partnership, on being treated as an equal rather than a subordinate.
And he met those demands.
He proved, through action rather than just words, that he could be better. That we could be better together. That's the real magic, you see. Not the silver light that flows from my hands when I heal. Not the ancient power that courses through my veins. The real magic is in choosing to trust again after betrayal. In finding the courage to love again after heartbreak. In believing that broken things, broken people, broken relationships, broken pacts, can be healed. They called me cursed for my power. But I call myself blessed for my journey. Every moment of exile taught me something. Every hour of solitude made me stronger. Every tear I cried in that mountain cave watered the seeds of who I was meant to become. I wasn't just healing a king when I broke that curse. I was healing myself. I was healing my pack. I was healing the wounds that fear and politics and injustice had inflicted on all of us.
And now
I'm building a future where no one has to choose between their power and their place in the pack. Where being different is celebrated rather than condemned. Where love, not fear, guides our choices. So here's my final question for you. The one I've been building to this entire time. What would you do with your power if you weren't afraid? What amazing things could you accomplish if you stopped letting fear of judgment, of rejection, of being too much or not enough control your choices? What healing could you bring to the world if you fully embraced who you were meant to be?
think about it.
Because maybe, just maybe, you're not cursed. Maybe you're chosen. Maybe your exile, whatever form it takes, is just preparing you for your triumphant return. Maybe your story is just beginning. The forbidden always calls to the fated. And you were always meant for something extraordinary. The moon remembers. And so do I. Elara Vin, Queen of the Shadowpine Pack, Healer of the Cursed, Chosen of the Moon. Please subscribe to my channel as part of your great support to the growth of this community.